So I wanted to talk today just briefly about, choosing and working with an attorney while you're involved in these federal criminal investigations, or if you've been charged or arrested. Um, I think I had mentioned that FBI came to see me 11 years ago last week, told me that I was being charged with 3 felonies, one of them being securities fraud and 2 other related, that I had a loss through the conspiracy of over $3 million, and I was facing 9 years in prison. Terrifying day. I still have PTSD from that meeting. It was just a terrifying time in my life. And I remember, going across the hall to a co-tenant or a friend that was in the same office building as me, an attorney, and talking with him about it, and not a criminal attorney. And he said to me, you need to really get an attorney that you can lean on. It's vital. It's life and death. You need to find a criminal attorney that has been through these types of situations before, that has handled these specific types of cases. You need to do that. You need to go out and interview several of these attorneys. This is probably one of the most important days of your life. I had known someone that was a securities attorney that I had worked with before, and I gave them a call and talk with them about the case. Ultimately, my case ended several years later with 1 year of home confinement. And the attorney that finished up with me, that brought me into sentencing, was not the initial attorney I used. It was Brian Kelly over at Nixon Peabody, who was just not only an amazing attorney, but an amazing human being, guided myself and my family through the most difficult times of our life, and really just helped get me through the situation. And I'll be forever grateful to him. And today he's a personal friend. And anytime that we come across a client or a friend that has any type of trouble, we refer them to Brian Kelly over at Nixon Peabody. But as I said, he was the one that I finished up with. We had a few attorneys along the way. And, I think it's important, just like my friend had said in the office building that day, is to find someone that understands these types of criminal cases, that has experience prosecuting them. Throughout the course of the initial time I had spent with some other attorneys, I constantly had to educate them on what I did, what the government said that I did. I had to educate them on what penny stocks were, what a pump and dump was, offshore accounts, things of that nature. So as I work with clients today, I either try to refer them, help them, assist them, or tell them it's important that you need to find an attorney that understands the case. He's defended people before that have been arrested for your types of crimes. He understands the lingo, the jargon. He can talk with prosecutors. You don't need to educate him. You don't need to pay someone $700 an hour to educate them. So that's what I was doing early on. I think it's really important that you have someone that is really going to advocate for you. When you're paying someone $700, $800 an hour, they're working for you. They're someone that, although they probably know a lot more about the legal part of the case than you do, they're someone that needs to listen to your wishes and advocate on your behalf. I remember one particular time that I had talked with one of my attorneys and said, things seem to be going pretty well. It seems like, the relationship is pretty good with the FBI investigators as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office. I know the plea agreement is not completed yet. We've got these 3 charges. What do you think about, potentially getting 1 or 2 of the charges dropped and, getting us, in a better position? And I remember the attorney said to me that day, and what exactly would that do for you? And I said, well, for starts, it might bring the sentencing guidelines lower and give me a lower starting point, than 78 to 97 months, which at that time, getting probation was almost unimaginable. And the attorney said to me, why don't you just continue to do what you're going to do? Don't commit any more crimes. Be cooperative as possible. Make your restitution payments. Do everything that's asked of you, and you let me handle everything else. And that was upsetting to me. I felt like, things were moving in the right direction in my case, that an honest conversation with prosecutors could have potentially yielded a a charge being dropped or an adjustment in the plea agreement or adjustment in the guidelines. And that's ultimately what ended up happening when I got Brian Kelly as an attorney, that some adjustments were able to be made and I was given a much lower starting point. The last thing that I want to mention is, during a federal investigation, it is so stressful on the persons themselves and their family. And one thing that doesn't need to be added to that is enormous financial stress. So in my case, working with Brian Kelly and Nixon Peabody, extremely fair, extremely honest on the billing, really made the whole end of the situation going into sentencing very easy for me. But, early on in my scenario, just getting these enormous legal bills, getting billed by multiple attorneys, in a firm. What I suggest to people that I work with today is talk with the attorney, let them know that you'd like to just have one attorney handle your situation. I received some invoices in some cases with 2 or 3 different attorneys, totaling $7,000-8,000 for a meeting on a Tuesday afternoon, where a couple people were either there or a couple people were consulted about the case. So I think that's one thing that I would tell people that we work with is talk with your attorney and tell them that you'd like to have just him handle the case and you don't want to have any other people involved in the billing unless you're approved that first. I would also say that, if it's possible, to talk with your attorney and get an estimate of what the case might look like financially and see if it might be possible to pay a flat fee to handle it from all the way from negotiating a plea agreement, signing the plea agreement, going all the way through to sentencing, doing a sentencing memorandum, and going all the way into sentencing. I can remember that I had paid a significant amount of money. I had gone through a retainer and some more funds, and I can remember sitting down with my attorney and saying, how much do you think it will cost to complete this whole process and go all the way through? And he gave me some number, I don't remember what it was. And I happened to have a checkbook with me that day, and I said, I'll write you a check right now, and I don't want to see any more invoices. And he balked at that and said, let me give that some thought. And I can remember what he said to me was, so if we don't use, all of the funds, in a sense, if we do the work for you and sentencing comes and there's money left over, would you want that back? And I said to him, no, you tell me what you think it's going to cost. I'll write a check right now, and I don't want another invoice. And my attorney had, at that point said to me, let me give that some thought, and just avoided that conversation, from going forward. So a flat fee, if that's something that could be negotiated, I think takes a tremendous amount of stress. And then lastly, I would just like to say it's a good idea to kind of keep track of the work that the attorneys are doing. I can remember in one particular situation that early on in my case, one of my attorneys had started working on a sentencing memorandum. I'm not sure if it was before or just after I had signed the plea agreement, but whatever it was, sentencing wasn't coming for some time. The government had told me that, with some trials that were ahead and the conspiracy, that it would be probably a year or two before I would be sentenced. And I can remember, getting a bill for $20,000 for a sentencing memorandum that really was not needed, and that probably wouldn't have been needed for a couple of years. So I would just ask the attorneys to remain accountable and to provide any work that they're doing on your behalf. Later, when I changed attorneys and moved over to Brian Kelly at Nixon Peabody, I believe, our attorneys had asked for, a copy of the additional work and weren't able to obtain it. So I just think it's just really important to have a good relationship with the attorneys, that they need to understand that they work for you. Of course, they know a lot more than you do about these cases, but I think it's important that they respect your wishes and be fair with billing. And if there's a request like, could you go and talk to the prosecutor for me? Could you go and talk to the investigator for me? I think it's important that they honor those requests and do the best that they can to help you. Again, at the end of my case, I was really fortunate that I met Brian Kelly at Nixon Peabody and his team. When the FBI came to see me in 2012, I had sentencing guidelines of 78 to 97 months. I was sentenced in 2016 in June to 1 year of home confinement. With my sentence mitigation work, which was very extensive, cooperation, restitution, and a fantastic attorney in Brian Kelly at Nixon Peabody, I was able to obtain what some people tell me was one of the largest departures in the history of the Economics Crime Unit at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. And, it was, the cooperation, it was the mitigation, it was the attorney, it was the entire package that I put together to help me get the best result possible. And that's what I try to do today when I'm working with someone. When someone comes to me and says that they've received a target letter, they've been visited by the FBI, they've been arrested, they've been indicted, we try to put together a total package to help them get the best result possible, whether it be referring an attorney, helping them with mitigation, with community service, crisis management. We try to do everything for them, and we try to give our clients an opportunity to get through the process the best they can. There's really no good way of getting through this process. Get the best possible outcome. With some of our prison consultants, we try to help them make the right moves in prison to get the lowest possible sentence or the quickest exit home, whether that be the residential drug and alcohol program or working with the First Step Back with different types of programs. And then we try to help them come out the other side the best they can. We try to make sure that we're working with them to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, to only go through this experience once in your life. So if this is something that you're experiencing, if you've been contacted by the FBI, if you've been arrested, and you're about to embark on finding an attorney and going through this process, and you want some advice from myself and my team, I'll put my contact details in the bio, and feel free to give me a call for a no obligation consult. Happy to share my experience and talk about some of the things that we might be able to do to help you through this process. And wish you the best of luck if you are in the middle of this process.